Gaza Dawn reporting. Australian modern slavery abolitionist Grace Forrest will join the likes of the Dalai Lama, Nelson Mandela and Malala Yousafzai when she's awarded the Roosevelt For Freedoms Award in a few months. The founder of the international human rights organisation Walk Free will become the first Australian woman to receive the prestigious honour. And Grace joins us now from her hometown of Perth. First of all, Grace, congratulations on receiving this award. Your crusade to abolish modern slavery began in Nepal when you were just 18 and has grown into a global mission. The award was named after Eleanor Roosevelt, who oversaw the drafting of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So what does this mean to you to receive it?
It was completely overwhelming to receive this award, Narelda, and to be the first Australian woman is mind-blowing. I think for the Roosevelt Foundation, it's incredible to be acknowledged by an organisation that has such a deep history in human rights and international law for the lifespan of Walk Free's work. And I'd definitely say that this award absolutely belongs to the people, mostly women, who help Walk Free to what it is today. The colleagues I currently work with, as well as the people who have helped build it over its 10-year lifespan. And it's also a deep privilege for this award to be it's also a deep privilege to be a part of this awards with the other laureates, because modern slavery is a deeply intersectional issue. So the work of protecting the Uyghur people in Xinjiang in China, the work of Indigenous rights and the climate crisis, and of course freedom of speech in conflict zones, all of these things relate to modern slavery as well. So it's a deep privilege.
Well, Grace, you and your team at Walk Free initiated the Global Slavery Index, which measures modern slavery around the world to help inform government responses. Your last survey found 50 million people globally are living in slavery. Can you tell us what modern slavery looks like?
Yes, so modern slavery is an umbrella term that we use to describe a number of highly exploitative practices, including forced labour, forced marriage, debt bondage, human trafficking, and state-imposed forced labour. What all of these extreme abuses have in common is that it is one person exploited by another or by a company for personal or financial gain, where a person cannot leave. So the Global Slavery Index found last year that there were 10 million more people living in modern slavery since our last survey, and this is as a result of compounding crises throughout the world. To put the figure in another perspective, there are actually more women and girls living in modern slavery today than there are people living in Australia.
Well, modern slavery reaches every corner of the world, as you've said, and Australia isn't immune, even though we had a Prime Minister in recent years who said slavery never existed in Australia. What issues do we face here, and is our government doing enough?
Australia absolutely faces issues of modern slavery, and I did actually fact-check him on that one. But currently, we are looking at a situation where 41,000 people are living in modern slavery in Australia. And on top of that, Australia imports some $17 billion worth of goods at high risk of being made using forced and child labour. These include solar panels, seafood products, the TV that you're watching this on today. Is the Australian government doing enough? Look, they started out implementing the Australian Modern Slavery Act a number of years ago, but we've been able to prove over the last few years that this legislation doesn't go nearly far enough. And when we're talking about exploitation in Australia, we have to talk about migrant worker exploitation, because we know migrant workers are 3 times more likely to experience forced labour than non-migrant workers. We need stronger legislation to protect these workers. We need stronger legislation to reach into our global supply chains and actually ensure that we're not doing active harm to the people who are producing the goods we buy and use every single day.
Grace, countries with conflict are particularly vulnerable to various forms of modern slavery. Last year you visited Ukraine, where the war has substantially increased the risk. Do you have any concerns about modern slavery in Gaza?
Oh, absolutely. What's happening in Gaza can only be described as a complete humanitarian crisis, with international human rights organisations around the world citing multiple breaches of international law and even the Genocide Convention. We know that in situations of conflict, distress migration and mass displacement, that people are disproportionately impacted by modern slavery. And I actually did spend some time in Ramallah and in the West Bank a few years ago looking at the risk that Palestinians already faced to modern slavery. And in situations of protracted conflict, this risk absolutely goes through the roof. So we are concerned about that alongside many other humanitarian issues happening there.
And Grace, are these the types of issues you're going to be working on in your new role as a Global Commissioner on Modern Slavery and Human Trafficking, alongside, mind you, former UK PM Theresa May?
Yes, very much this commission is about putting modern slavery back onto the political agenda. You know, we saw some movement when Theresa was Prime Minister. The UK introduced the UK Modern Slavery Act. A few years later, Malcolm Turnbull introduced the Australian Modern Slavery Act. But the reality is progress has slowed and vulnerability is continuing to rise. So the G20 countries are actually responsible for over 50% of the world's people living in modern slavery, as well as hundreds of billions of dollars of import risk every day. And we just don't think that's good enough, that the world's most powerful nations are not effectively responding to an issue that they are causing throughout the world. So this commission is very much about putting modern slavery on the political agenda as an economic issue, as a political issue, and very much as a human rights issue that cannot be ignored.
Well, Grace, congratulations. You've just proven to us why you are the recipient, the first Australian woman to receive the Roosevelt for Freedoms Award. Thank you so much for joining us on Midday. We'll have to have you back.
Thank you, Narelda.
Coming up today, the signs America's